to discern your experience and to articulate it in a way that just makes it very, very real for people who are listening. So yeah, that's just something I've always noticed about your playing, man. So tell us a little bit about where you come from, how you got into blues, how you got into to guitar in the first place. I know you're not just playing the blues either. Your styles are very varied and kind of coming from a lot of different influences. So speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, first off, thank you, Waylon. I appreciate it. This my buddy, this my man's man, and you know, real quick, he gonna gas me up and he gonna say all the good things about me. But you know, you a good influence to me, and you are a tremendous musician as well. And so I take a lot of influence and I take a lot of pride to knowing that you my friend and you always have my back and you've always supported me musically. And yeah, thank you. And to answer your question, yeah, I grew up in Indianapolis on the west side. If anybody's familiar with the Indy 500, I grew up right next to it. So like loud cars every Memorial Day, Formula One, NASCAR. One time I saw Tony Stewart's tire blast off of a wheel and just like shoot over the racetrack and like land on 16th and Crossville Road. It's crazy. Like I've seen all of it. And that influenced me because at the end of the day, like I think, you know, regardless of shades of color and stuff like that, I think that like I saw people be people and come in communion. And blues kind of came to me in a sort of type of way. My family's from the South. I'm probably like two generations in from the Midwest, but everybody's from Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana. And blues was not something we expressed as much as new and current music, but it was still there. And I tell you, like really personally, 2012, I think I had, my grandfather had passed away, and he was from Mississippi. And he was always one of those type of people that sat up and listened to blues music, used to tell me all these stories about growing up in between Jacksonville and Natchez, Mississippi, or Biloxi, and all these little places. And I was just fascinated, and one of the things that like it just took me a long time to realize is that like those stories, including the ones that I heard from my other grandfather about growing up in Pantherburn, Mississippi, or stories about my grandmother growing up in Montgomery, Alabama, at a point in time when Jim Crow, when her birth certificate had colored on it. It was a whole different type of era, and she explained those times to me. And honestly, there's not a lot that has happened, has changed in certain ways, and so blues to me was a kind of a calling and a best discovery. It was like a time capsule. It was like opening up a time capsule of what was going on and still seeing that it still was relevant and still spoke and to a lot of people that I thought that I couldn't relate to. And I just really, with all the influences, like you said, man, with all the different influences from punk rock to hip hop to metal music, to country, folk music, all these things kind of played a key, significant role in my upbringing of music, which falls into how I started playing guitar. I just saw kids in the neighborhood, and of all the things that people were doing, all the kids were doing at a turbulent time, I saw people hovering around this thing with 6 strings, and I wanted to know what the secret was. Why everybody sitting in the garage listening to AC/DC or Jimi Hendrix? Like, what's going on? What am I missing out? And that curiosity just led from 15 to now I'm 29, and like it's still the same curiosity of just like what's the 2-3-5 about? What's the 1-4-5 about? What's all these things about? And to answer like the other question or that statement of just like all those things kind of came into play, and when I was trying to find my sound, blues just sounded really like important, and it came out naturally. Like I said, all my people from the Deep South, all my people experienced some type of oppression where it just kind of came out naturally. And I just found myself really being like, okay, you know, we can talk about what was going on then, or I could write about what was going on then, or I could write about what's going on now. And that was the jump. That was a very vulnerable and scary jump. to talk about things that people don't want to talk about, or people want to hush and hide away, and to put it in a type of musical form that's been around for the last 100 years. And I felt like I wasn't really doing nothing different, but every time I come out here and play these shows, there's always something magical that happens, where really what it boils down to is that you might be white and I might be black, but we, at the end of the day, we can relate on something. And we can really talk about something. You might be older than me, you might be younger than me, but we can relate on common ground, on common things that people can relate to. And I just hope that, like, my music, regardless of what genre I might eventually pass into when I turn my 30s or 40s or something like that, regardless of what type of music, I always wanted to stay true to what I know. I don't know nothing, but I know what's going on in my life. And that was just like the two main components to just kind of give you this sound that you're hearing now. Of just like, there's no reason to lie, there's no reason to hide about anything, especially when you know what's going on in the world. You know what's happening in the streets with the police and black people. What am I ultimately saying different? I'm just telling you my story. And I'm passionate about that only because I know that at the end of the day, we don't really get opportunities like this. And so I'm not here to preach, but I'm here to just share my story, and I'm just here to let people know that, like, hey, I'm just no different, and I'm a person, I'm happy to be here, and I love to be here. And all I want to do is just play this music and show people love, show people what it means to be me. And that's the longest story.
Give it up.